Currently, over 60% of Australians support Israel and its right to exist on stolen land. I'm not an academic or a diplomat. I'm just a concerned citizen who's here to tell you how entities like Israel can control your media and what you consume. It's no secret that Israel has had a history of controversy ever since the beginning of its existence. But have you ever sat down and really wondered why? Some of you might ask why this even matters, but the long answer will be answered later. The short answer is that Israel, its policies, and its iron grip on the media have far more effect on your day-to-day lives as an Australian than you could ever truly imagine. The reason Israel holds so much controversy in today's world is due to two main reasons. The fact that it was established through genocide on stolen land and is still committing a borderline genocide today, and the fact that it consistently uses anti-Semitism and victimization paired with its grip over the media to demonize its critics. The media is potentially Israel's greatest weapon when it comes to maintaining its existence. And for a fair reason. Ever since news and media became a privatized industry, Israel has built close relationships with media moguls and billionaires who heavily influence modern society. Take Rupert Murdoch, for example. According to a study done by the Parliament of Australia, Rupert Murdoch and his family own and control almost 65% of your media as an Australian, and influence another 30%. And Murdoch has gone on the record stating extreme public support for the media war against Israel. As a result, News Corp outlets often reflect those stances, pushing extremely pro-Israel agendas. As a result, especially in Australia, Israel's atrocities in the Gaza Strip are often underreported or outright ignored. Most observers have concluded that the civilian to combatant ratio in Gaza is almost 4-1. That means 80% of the people Israel has killed in Gaza are civilians, with no ties to the Hamas organization. But you won't ever hear that in pro-Israel media, or even most mainstream broadcasts that claim to be neutral. Instead, what you'll hear are carefully chosen words. Airstrikes, targets, militants, language that feels clinical and controlled. You'll see numbers but rarely ever faces behind them, statistics but rarely ever stories. And when civilian casualties are mentioned, they're followed by a justification. Israel says it was targeting Hamas infrastructure. It's because the narrative resets before the human impact can ever sink in. You'll see headlines like the one from The Australian, saying Israel has every right to crush Hamas. And that's the power of framing. Because if 80% of casualties are civilians, mothers, children, elderly people, ordinary families, that should be the headline. That should be the moral crisis dominating our screens. But instead, coverage pivots back to strategy, geopolitics, and Israel's right to defend itself. And while every nation has that right doesn't erase accountability. It doesn't erase proportionality, and it certainly doesn't erase civilian lives. And most of all, it's not a reason to erase Australians' rights to know what the countries we're closest with are up to behind closed doors. So what aren't we seeing? We're not seeing extended coverage of entire neighborhoods flattened. We're not seeing the long-term effects of blockades that restrict water, electricity, food, medical supplies. We're not seeing the psychological trauma inflicted on a generation of children who have grown up knowing nothing but warplanes overhead. We're not seeing detailed breakdowns of international law experts questioning if anything in the Gaza Strip going on is even legal. And we're definitely not seeing when these things are mentioned. And when they are, they're often framed as controversial claims rather than serious allegations worthy of investigation. Now zoom out. If Murdoch-owned outlets dominate Australian media, and Murdoch himself has openly expressed support for Israel, is it really shocking that media coverage leans in that direction? Media isn't about reporting facts. It's about deciding which ones matter. It's about tone, repetition. It's about which voices get invited onto panels and which voices are labeled radicalist. And over time, repetition becomes perception, perception becomes belief, and belief becomes polling data. That's how you end up with over 60% of Australians. Because for many people, that's the only position they consistently hear articulated in a sympathetic light. Because today, it might be coverage of Israel. Tomorrow, it could be climate policy, or war with another nation, or domestic surveillance laws. Once you accept that narratives can be guided without you noticing, you realize this isn't about foreign policy. It's about influence over our democracy itself. Now let's talk about the second point, history. Israel's critics often point to its formation in 1948 and the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. Palestinians call it the Nakba, or catastrophe. Entire villages depopulated, families fled or forced out, land ownership changing hands under the protection of military force. Whether you frame that as the cost of statehood or ethnic cleansing depends on your political lens, but the displacement is historically documented. And since then, tensions have not disappeared. Repeated cycles of retaliation and military operation have kept the region in constant instability. Yet when this history is condensed into quick sound bites, it loses its complexity. It becomes, they attacked first, or they've always hated each other. Simplifications that make people switch off instead of dig deeper. And finally, there's the accusation that criticism of Israeli policy is frequently equated with anti-Semitism. Now let's be clear, anti-Semitism is real, it's dangerous, and it has caused unimaginable suffering throughout history. And it should be condemned. But there is a difference between the hatred of Jewish people and the criticism of a government's policies. And when that distinction becomes blurred, it creates fear. People hesitate to speak, journalists tread carefully, and politicians avoid strong criticism. And that chilling effect benefits those in power, because fewer people are willing to question them openly. So where does that leave Australians? Well, if you truly believe in fairness, accountability, and human rights, then your focus shouldn't be blind loyalty to any government. Not Israel's, Palestine's, or even Australia's. It should be on principles. When foreign leaders are welcomed into Australia with handshakes and diplomatic smiles, that's not symbolism. That signals alignment. And if you believe alignment is being granted without scrutiny, then it's your responsibility to demand transparency from your own government, not just argue with strangers online. Write to your MP, ask questions about military exports, about trade deals, about diplomatic endorsements, attend peaceful demonstrations, support independent journalism, and don't outsource your moral judgment to a headline. Because at the end of the day, media narratives only work if audiences stop questioning them. The point isn't to replace one form of blind support with another. The point is to challenge the assumption that what you see on your screen is the full story. Maybe the real question is, why do 60% of Australians support it? Maybe it's, what information shaped that support? And who decided it was enough? Because once you start asking that question, you stop being just an audience member. You start being a citizen.